into Teal, the show. We've got Frangie in the building. Frank, it is another rough Monday.
Yeah, it really is. It's another similar Monday. Game comes down to 5 points. Game comes down to the last minute of the game, and the other team makes one more play than the Jags do. That's really the story of this season. It's been a season. They're 2-8, and when you're 2-8, you are what your schedule says you are, and their record says you are, and you're an 8-loss team. But 6 of those games have been 5 points or less and decided in the last 2 minutes, and one more happened on Sunday.
Look, it was a rough one on Sunday. There's no way around it, Frank. Against the Minnesota Vikings, the defense did their part. Three interceptions, held them to 12 points. It's tough to point the blame. And at weeks, we've pointed the blame at Ryan Nielsen and the defense for not being good enough. This just wasn't one of those efforts. The defense did their part.
Yeah, the defense has struggled this year. They came into the game ranked 31st in the league. There's only 32 teams in the league. So the defense has struggled. But the defense was pretty good. They got 3 takeaways. They made the Vikings go the length of the field, did not allow a touchdown in the game. You get 3 takeaways and don't allow a touchdown in the game, you're supposed to win the game. But that's been the story of the season, Jamal. One week it's this, the next week it's that. That whole complementary football thing that coaches like to talk about just hasn't happened much for this team. They had an awful lot of opportunities to go and win this game and couldn't do it. But I agree with you. The defense played pretty well. They really did.
The big question going into the game, Frank, was who was going to play quarterback for the Jaguars. It ended up being Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence sidelined. Mac, the Jacksonville guy, everyone wanted to see him have the great day. He did get the touchdown and a chance to celebrate with the home fans, but maybe not the outing that Mac or the offense was looking for.
Mac didn't play well. He would tell you that. The first drive, the Jags looked very good. The Vikings were sort of feeling it out a little bit. Brian Flores wasn't blitzing very much. They sat back. Jags went right down the field. After that first drive, the rest of the game, the Vikings sent pressure, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, sometimes interior pressure, sometimes outside pressure, and the Jags really were flustered by that. Mac Jones, in fairness to Mac, hadn't played in a long time. I hadn't started a game since week 12 last year, has played very little. Well, no matter how much you know about blitzing and no matter how much you know about what teams are going to do, if you haven't been out there, it's hard to all of a sudden know where the hot receiver is and know blitz recognition and how to respond. I think the blitzing really flustered him. I thought he left the pocket early a few times. I thought he was on his back foot a few times. And again, I'm going to defend him. He hadn't played. But I thought once the blitzing started, it was a tough go for the Jags, really the rest of the game.
Yeah, there were definitely a few plays in there that Mac Jones said after the game he wishes he could have back.
Yeah.
I grew up down the road and played my first game, tackle football 19 miles from here. So definitely disappointed with my opening start, but I know I can be better, and I usually bounce back pretty good from failure, so I'm going to see what I can do.
Well, we'll see if Mac has a chance to bounce back, because the Jaguars may need him again this week.
Yeah, we'll see. If Trevor doesn't play again, Mac Jones will be better next week than he was this week because he will have played a game. And I agree with him. He has had to have a bouncing back. He's a resilient guy. He's a tough guy. He's a very animated guy. He's different than Trevor. He's very animated. He's very emotional. Trevor is not quite as get in your face and emotional as Mac is, and Mac is that way. He'll bounce back and he'll play better. Now, look, it's a tough challenge next week. We'll talk about that later on. But for the here and now, Mac Jones, he owned it. He said he didn't play well in spots, and he'll play better, and I believe him.
This is sort of a weird middle ground where we're heading into another week of questions about Trevor Lawrence's availability, dealing with that injury to his non-throwing shoulder, which isn't great.
Right.
Missed 1 week. We'll see if he's available this week. He was listed as questionable officially for the game before finally being ruled out. The Jaguars could really use him back out on the field.
Yeah, there's no question. Look, he's the first overall pick in the draft. He just got paid a bunch of money. Yeah. He's your best player. He's your most important player. Of course you want Trevor Lawrence out there. But I wouldn't rush it. If I was the Jags and if I was Trevor, I wouldn't rush it. There's a lot of football to be played in his career. The reality is they're 2-8. I wouldn't hold him down. I wouldn't hold him out because of that, but I'd be smart about this. If he's ready to play, he should go play. But if he's not, remember, you got an off week coming out. You got the bye after this. So if he doesn't play this week, then he's got 3 straight weeks for that shoulder to heal. Now, I don't know what they've decided or when they will decide it, but I certainly would understand the logic of not playing him this week when you would then have 3 straight weeks letting that shoulder heal.
Let him take the time that he needs in a season that doesn't seem like it's going anywhere fast. Coming up, we'll take another look at the game and talk about some of the guys that maybe didn't show up on Sunday against the Vikings. That's coming up next when Teal the Show returns. All right, welcome back here into Teal the Show. So the guy that maybe we didn't see out on the field. We haven't seen him for 2 weeks at this point. Brian Thomas Jr., he's missing in action.
Yeah.
He's basically got that rib injury a couple of weeks ago. He was fantastic before then, and now the targets just haven't been there.
Well, there just weren't many targets for wide receivers yesterday. Parker Washington, who's been a good player, wasn't involved in the game. Brian Thomas was barely involved in the game. Gabe Davis was targeted a few times. They really threw to Evan Ingram, as they should. He's probably their best receiver playing right now, certainly their most dependable. But they just didn't stay on the field, Jamal. The problem was there was too many 3-and-outs. There were too many punts. You can't get anybody into a rhythm, or you can't get everybody into a rhythm if you're not on the field. It was a tough day for the offense. It was a tough day for the offense to stay out there. The Vikings had their number, and we knew that. So when you see a game, I think they only had 40-some plays. I think it was 41, 42 plays. If that's all you have in a football game, it's hard to get people involved. The average NFL game has 62 plays per team. There were 20 under that. I want to say the Vikings snapped it 30, 40 more times than the Jags did. When you don't have very many plays, it's hard to get guys involved.
Just a rough day for the offense as a whole. And right now, the Jaguars have had a rough season as a whole. Sitting at 2-8, there are a whole lot more questions than there are answers as the team tries to figure out how they can be better.
It's the sport, it's the business. You know, we signed up for it. We the guys who lost the game. So we just gotta try to fix it. We gotta stay together. No drop-offs, no breakups, and just keep rolling.
Just gotta do opposite of what we did. I mean, it's just gotta get going. Gotta make plays. Gotta move the ball. Gotta move the chains. Gotta stay ahead of the chains. Gotta protect. Gotta run better routes. Gotta block better. Everybody's got to do their job better. It's just not good what we did today at all.
Sounds like you said just about just play better football almost.
That's it. I mean, that's simple as that. It's just we're better than that. So
just keep understanding, man. It's a 4-quarter game. You know, stay within the fight. Whatever the outcome, just keep fighting. You know, stay resilient and stay with that edge. And it's unfortunate that we haven't been on that side of the ball these last couple of days, but the last couple of weeks. You know, but if we keep fighting, I feel like we're just getting better, especially defensively, offensively. You know, I feel like they're going to find their groove. And once they do, man, we're going to be playing some great ball.
I mean, I guess you can say it's tough, but I mean, at the end of the day, you have to keep energy up. That's the only way you're going to move forward and be able to just be yourself, be able to get better. I mean, we just got to just look in the mirror, look at the man in the mirror, you know, and just try to find a way to be better. You know, do a little more than last week. The losses do keep stacking up, but it's not because we're not working hard. I feel like it's just the little mental errors. It's like the small details. So I feel like we just got to focus on the little details, and we just got to start finding ways to win. Like just whenever we get out there, just have a mindset of winning. And I feel like we all just focus our mind on winning. Good and bad things will happen in the football game. It's football. It's ups and downs, ebbs and flows. But we just got to find a way to just get one more point than them, and we won't be having these conversations no more.
Look, Frank, it's late in the season, and at this point, frustration is setting in because the guys know they need to be better and feel like they're honestly a better team than maybe they've put on the field.
Well, here's the real reality, is nobody expected this. Not the players, coaches, fans. I'm sure the owner didn't expect this. Nobody expected this. It looked like they had a pretty good team going into the season. I know I thought they did, and they're 2-8. So I got to believe that's how they felt too. So when you expect to be right in the middle of it, when you think you've got a good team, the owner said before the season it's one of the best rosters they've ever had, and I agree with him on that. Maybe not the early years, but it's certainly, I thought it was going to be the best roster in the last 10, 12 years, and it hasn't played out that way. So when it doesn't go the way you thought it would, you've got to adjust your thinking. You've got to deal with the disappointment. You've got to deal with what a blow it is that you don't have the record you thought you'd have. Yet you still got to play 7 more games. See, that's the thing. You can't stop. You can't say, well, you know what, it got away from me. I'm not going to play. I'm a golfer, and I'm not going to play the last 5 holes. It doesn't work like that. You got to finish. There's 7 more games, and now you're probably not in it. Now you know it didn't go the way you wanted to. Yet as a professional, a paid professional, you got to keep playing. That's what they're dealing with right now.
Yeah, it's a rough time. Frank, they've won 5 of their last 18 games over the last 2 years, and we're sitting in November looking at draft orders where the Jaguars are in line for the #1 overall pick for the 3rd time in the last 5 years.
And nobody saw that coming. Again, I'll say it again. I mean, not just us, national pundits, national analysts, maybe people didn't have them winning 11 or 12 games. Like I had them at 11, here's what I know. But I do think nobody had them this. Everybody thought, worst case, they're a middle-of-the-pack team. Worst case, they're a 500 team that will be in it until late November. Nobody expected this, so what do you do? Number one, you got to play the rest of these games. I know Doug Peterson. I talked to Doug a lot. He's desperately trying to get answers. He didn't expect this. The players didn't expect this. It's as tough a situation. Look, we've seen a lot of bad Jaguar teams, but most of the Jaguar teams that have struggled mightily sort of expected to. Maybe didn't expect to struggle as mightily as they did. This team never saw this coming.
You know what maybe makes it worse is that a middle-of-the-pack team would probably win the AFC South.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great point. It was a division there for the taking, wasn't it? And the Jaguars weren't able to stay in the mix. And that's another thing that I think disappoints all of them. It really does.
All right, next up for the Jaguars, a date with the Detroit Lions. Definitely not going to be an easy game. We'll talk a little bit more about that game coming your way on Friday night's episode of Teal the Show. Frank, thanks for being here tonight. Thank you at home for tuning in. Good night, everybody, and go Jags.